The era of generic expertise is ending. With the age of AI, it's all about building the kind of knowledge that makes you irreplaceable. Grab your cup of tea and let's talk about 3 laws to future proof your career. The world is being completely reshaped at the moment. When you compound things like AI and automation and the seismic changes that most industries are undergoing at the moment, it means that your networks and your experience is no longer the most valuable thing that you have to offer the marketplace. Your knowledge is. This is the advantage that you bring to a marketplace, to your industry. I recently talked about in my Future Self Strategy episode about Mr. Beast and how he had this really future orientated mindset for what he could achieve, and how he was able to grow his YouTube channel from a small channel that started off with him producing videos in his high school bedroom to the absolute mega sensation that he is at the moment as the biggest creator on YouTube, with 480 plus million subscribers on his main YouTube channel alone. And while Mr. Beast's content isn't necessarily the kind of content that I tend to consume a lot of, what I do really love is watching what he talks about in interviews and learning more about his success story, because it is really fascinating. And one of the things that I remember him talking about in an interview was this idea of YouTube being a knowledge game, and that sometimes people don't agree with him, but he is convinced that it is a knowledge game, and that he is always going to, no matter what, dominate on the channel because he is prepared to play the knowledge game. He understands that if he studies YouTube like nobody else, if he comes up with ideas based on that study, that he will always be able to succeed. And I do think that knowledge and this idea of continuously updating your knowledge can be something that a lot of professionals, even at a leadership level, can sometimes overlook the importance of continuous learning. Because we often think that if we got a degree or if we did the course at the start of our career, then that is all we need to know until we learn on the job. And we think that that combination of maybe formal qualifications, if you have it, and the learning that you do actively is going to be all you need to succeed in your career. But the problem is that when you take that approach, it has the potential to set you up for failure as your industry continues to move on, as it progresses into the future. And this is something that is supported by research at the moment. For example, the World Economic Forum in their 2025 Future of Jobs report indicated that by 2030, it's estimated that 39% of core workplace skills are going to change. They highlighted the importance of skills like curiosity and flexibility, resilience, lifelong learning, and creativity, the fastest rising skills for the future of the job force. And this idea was also reflected in LinkedIn research as well, in LinkedIn Learning reporting, where executives had indicated that they believe that they are in a skills crisis and that employees don't have the right capabilities that they need for the future. But something that people can often miss is that your skills aren't created overnight. They are derived from your knowledge. So when you are continuously building your knowledge, and you're building your knowledge in the right ways, that is when you are going to future-proof your career. You're going to develop skills in a way that makes you irreplaceable. So let's dive into the 3 laws that will help you to future-proof your career. Number 1 is fill your buckets in the right order. Now, you may have heard this idea idea before because it comes from absolute mega creator Stephen Bartlett, who is also wildly commercially successful as well in his own right outside of his diary of a CEO brand. And he created these 33 laws for business and life in his book. But one of the things that he highlights really early on is that these laws aren't about business strategy, because business strategy is going to evolve over time. Business strategy changes with the season. So these are about instead enduring laws. And the very first law that he highlights is to fill your buckets in the right order. Now, he identifies that there are 5 buckets that sum up our professional potential. And that begins with what you know, which is your knowledge, what you can do, which is your skills, who you know, which is your network, what you have, which is your resources, and what the world thinks of you, which is your reputation. So it begins with what you know, your knowledge. That is the most important bucket that is up front in those 5 buckets. And really importantly, what Stephen Bartlett highlights is that all of those buckets are interconnected, meaning that you can't pour from an empty bucket. In order to fill all of those different buckets, you need to start with your knowledge. And he highlights that in particular, it's your knowledge bucket and your skills bucket, what you know and what you can do, that is the highest yielding investment you can make, because this is what cascades into all of the remaining buckets. And remember that even differentiating between the knowledge and the skills bucket is important, because your knowledge applied is what becomes your skills. And what is really important here as well is to remember that those first 2 buckets are the things that are in your control. The other 3 remaining buckets can have the potential to be changed by external forces, but it is your knowledge and your skills that you can control. And yes, the value of that knowledge and the relevance of your skills can potentially evolve. You can find that your skills, as we've talked about, may have a chance of becoming redundant in the near future. But what is in your control is that you can continue to acquire new knowledge. You can continue to develop new skills. That part is in your control. Those buckets and you filling those buckets are what is going to help you to deal with any changes in those external forces, like changes in your network, in your resources, or in your reputation. You can continuously mitigate against any of those things or boost any of those things by the knowledge and the skills that you are developing. Your knowledge and your skills can't be taken away from you. Bartlett says, "Those who hoard gold have riches for a moment. Those who hoard knowledge and skills have riches for a lifetime." So don't just treat your learning like a one-off investment in a degree or a course or a conference. Continuously evolve with the marketplace. Integrate ways that you can micro-learn as a part of your everyday routine. Move with the marketplace and you won't be left behind. But you don't just want to build any knowledge, and that leads me to my point number 2, which is to grow your specific knowledge. If you follow the masses and you do what everyone else is doing, or you learn what everyone else is learning and nothing else, there's still going to be plenty of other people who can do what you do. But if you build the intellectual capital that underpins your personal brand, your professional brand, in a way that is so unique, it means that you can't be replaced, because it is not something that other people can imitate. And this idea of specific knowledge is something that first really resonated with me from the absolute Silicon Valley icon, Naval Ravikant, where he talks about this importance of building knowledge that is unique to you, that is centered around your talents, your interests, your capabilities, and your unique skill set, the experience that only you have had and that only you can offer the marketplace, because there is nobody that has had that same experience. And Naval Ravikant really reminds us that if someone else can be trained in what it is that you do, specifically what it is that you do, then it means that they can replace you. So the goal is to create this repertoire of knowledge and skills and capabilities that is really difficult for anyone else to be able to replicate. You just can't imagine anyone else being able to replicate this unique combination. So this is about really asking yourself, what is your niche field? What can you be a subject matter expert on in a way that nobody else is? What is the unique angle that you bring to your knowledge? And while you might not see an immediate result for your knowledge being applicable in the marketplace, if you continue to focus on building your knowledge and building your skills, then that means that there will eventually be a moment where the world will need that unique combination of skills and capabilities that you have been working on. Ravikant says, you are waiting for your moment when something emerges in the world where they need a skill set and you're uniquely qualified. You build your brand in the meantime on Twitter, on YouTube, and by giving away free work. You make a name for yourself and you take some risk in the process. When it is time to move on the opportunity, you do so with leverage, the maximum leverage possible. And this often reminds me of Warren Buffett's really popular philosophy about this idea of building a moat around a business. So once you have a competitive advantage in the marketplace, it's understanding how you are going to protect that advantage in the marketplace. You are constantly continuing to add to that moat around your business or around your personal brand, if you apply it to this context, so that the competition isn't able to replicate it, because you are continuously expanding that moat around your value. But you also don't want to be so focused on developing your niche expertise that you miss a bigger picture as well. And that leads me to my point number 3, which is to build your interdisciplinary knowledge. This is the point that I do feel that so many professionals and leaders included can often miss, because this is where people can become so narrowly focused on their field of expertise that they can forget that some of the most iconic inventions and progress that the world has made has stemmed from leaders who had interdisciplinary thinking. They didn't just have a narrow interest in one field. Take, for example, someone like Steve Jobs, who famously dropped out of Reed College early on in his time there. And he would speak about continuing to attend classes that he was simply just interested in. And one of those classes was calligraphy. He absolutely loved it, but he didn't necessarily see a way that he would apply the knowledge that he was gaining in those classes in the future. But that wasn't until many years later, when what he learned in that class underpinned some of the Mac design. So one of the greatest symbols of modern technology was also underpinned by ideas from an ancient art form. And this is something that Steve Jobs used to talk about. He would describe that a lot of leaders or a lot of people in his field don't have enough dots to connect. They don't have enough experience to be able to come up with the creative solutions that are truly going to move industries forward. And he summed up the importance of diverse interests and experiences really nicely when he said, a lot of people in our industry haven't had very diverse experiences, so they don't have enough dots to connect, and they end up with very linear solutions without a broad perspective of the problem. The broader one's understanding of the human experience, the better design we will have. And this is where Steve Jobs was really highlighting that so many people apply linear thinking to non-linear problems, when really it is that non-linear experience and knowledge that is going to lead to the best solution. And this idea of interdisciplinary thinking and interdisciplinary knowledge is something that first resonated with me when I read the book The Unfair Advantage by Ash Ali and Hassan Kuba, where they say creativity is largely about training your mind to connect things you learn in one domain to situations that seem completely unrelated. This is known as intersectional or interdisciplinary thinking. And if you want to learn more ideas from the unfair advantage, then make sure you check out my earlier episode on how the unfair advantage is you. Thanks so much, and I'll see you in the next episode.